What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. So today we are kicking off what is going to be probably a 7 or 8 episode special segment. See, in a video recently called How Your Comfort Zone is Slowly Ruining Your Financial Future, I posed a question to people, which was, would you be interested in learning more about discipline? Discipline is not like a super sexy topic, I think, but for me in my life, it was probably the skill that paid the biggest dividends once I learned how to start self-disciplining myself. Like, the big problem in my younger years was that I really rebelled against authority. Like, nobody could tell me what to do, where to be. They couldn't hold me accountable or anything like that. And that as a result meant that the only person who could or who would have to hold me accountable was myself, but I also rebelled against my own internal authority. And as a result, that's why I really struggled. Like, my life was not in a great place, all things told, considering like my relationships were really poor, my jobs, I was getting fired all the time. And you guys know that that I was $80,000 in debt. So I wasn't like fiscally responsible or disciplined either. So a lot of things were revolving around this simple concept of discipline. And Jocko Willink says that discipline equals freedom. And that was a message that a lesson that I learned myself, not having, consumed Jocko at that point. This was over a decade ago. And I stumbled upon that lesson and I found it to be deeply and prophetically true. And so the challenge then is, okay, what is discipline and how do we develop it? Because everybody would love to be more disciplined, not just rely on motivation, right? Like, motivation is this short-lived dopamine burst to get into the game, but it's not going to keep you in the game long enough to win it. That's where discipline comes in. And so in that video, I said, hey, if you guys are interested in learning more about discipline, let me know and I'll create some content on it. And I was blown away by the number of people that reached out and said, yes, absolutely, please make that content. I would love to learn more about discipline. I struggle with it. And like, truthfully, I still struggle with it. It's not a battle you win once and then you call it good. It's a battle you have to fight every single day for the rest of your life. And so a couple months ago, depending on when you're watching this, in January, so for me, this is going out in a couple days, I wrote an article for the Hyperfocused Entrepreneur newsletter, which, if you guys aren't subscribed to that, go subscribe. Go to anthonyvicino.com/newsletter. You can join, like 16,000 other entrepreneurs who subscribe and get this weekly letter in their inbox that helps them just, do better, do less better. That's the goal. And so I wrote an article about how to build self-discipline and stop procrastinating. And in this article, I lay out a 6-step framework for developing self-discipline. And so this is what we're going to unpack over the next handful of episodes, 6 or 7 episodes rather, is we're going to deep dive into discipline. So if that's not interesting to you, then you're going to want to tune out for the next handful of episodes. But each day we're going to get together and I'm going to share just another part of the framework to help you develop self-discipline. And before we can do that, though, we need to lay a little bit of groundwork, okay? The groundwork is that we need to understand the enemy. Who are we fighting against in this battle? And why is discipline so hard? And truthfully, it's not an overstatement to say that you are your own worst enemy, okay? But when I say you, it's really important that we understand which you we're talking about. So on the one hand, there's a lazy you. There's the one that cares about nothing else except surviving long enough to procreate. The lazy you, we could also just call it the biological you. Okay, and the biological you is a very powerful force in the universe, considering it's managed to keep you alive, and by you I mean your genes, for like 200,000 years. That's crazy. So you're up against a very powerful foe indeed, who's just trying to get you to zone out on the couch, eat Cheetos, and watch Netflix. And the reason for that is because your brain, your biological you, wants you to survive. It wants to expend as little energy as possible, because it doesn't necessarily know when it's going to, encounter more calories out on the savannah. So we need to conserve what we have. We need to stay alive. And a great way of doing that is just by staying put and not doing much, right? And this is a problem because the biological you wants you to survive. However, you, or the modern you, It's not enough just to survive. You want to thrive, right? Like you're starting to wrestle. Like if you're listening to this, chances are good that you've already solved for your basic human needs. Like you have your shelter, you have your clothing, you have food, you have those things met. Like you're not worried about getting murdered by a saber-toothed tiger. You're not worried about dying out in the wilderness to exposure, right? You have those basic needs met, which then frees you to start considering life's bigger issues, which is what's it mean to live a life of fulfillment, purpose, and meaning? What's it mean to be my greatest self? What's it mean to move towards my greatness, right? And those things lead to a life of thriving. But the problem is, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, is that those things are hard, right? Like living a life that moves you towards your greatness means that you're going to have to do hard things. And so you can see like right off the bat that we are immediately at odds, this modern you versus this biological you. And it's in that battle that we each have to wake up and fight every single day. And if you're like me, when I was younger in particular, I lost that battle more days than not. These days, I win more days than not. I don't win 100% of the days, and that is never the goal. You're never going to be perfect, right? The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. And to that end, if you want to progress, I think one of the things you have to understand is the primary weapons that the biological you is going to use to defeat you in this battle for your attention and for your discipline. Okay. And I find that the best encapsulation of this comes from Stephen Pressfield in his book, The War of Art. He calls this the resistance. And the resistance is a universal force with just one mission. And that mission is to keep things exactly as they are. And the resistance is going to do this through a bunch of different ways. Like it's going to rationalize. It's going to try and inspire fear and anxiety. It's going to start to emphasize other distractions, like in the moment that might require your attention. It's going to, raise the voice of your inner critic. And if you've ever said something like, I'm just not feeling inspired right now, or I'm just too tired at this moment, or it's not the right time, or, oh, I just need to hit the bathroom real quick and then I'll start on this thing, or, oh, I still have time to get this done tomorrow, or actually I'm a little bit hungry, I can't really focus. If you've ever done that while you're trying to make progress on a task, then you have experienced a resistance. And it's hard because the resistance is always there and it is rooted into you at such a biologically deep level that the only way we can overcome it is through thought and intentionality. So here's the interesting thing is that the resistance is going to rely a lot on emotions and feelings to get you to do something or to not do something, right? And when we follow our emotions, we tend to prioritize the short-term decisions that are not going to lead towards the long-term successes that we want in life. And so we need to be able to flip that script, and we need to be able to make decisions and move through life with intentionality and thoughtfulness and not responding simply with emotion. Now, emotion can be a really good way to get started depending on how you use that. We call that motivation or that's inspiration. And that can be a really good way to get into the game. However, a lot of people, if they don't have the discipline to fall back onto once that motivation starts to wane, which inevitably will, because we've talked about this in previous episodes about why dopamine is why motivation is linked to dopamine and how these are such short-lived systems of reward and pleasure, right? So go check out those episodes around motivation, the dopamine system, because you really need to understand why motivation is not the thing that's going to carry the day. Okay. And to dive into that in particular, I would go check out that article. You can How to Build Self-Discipline and Stop Procrastinating. You can go to anthonyvicino.com/discipline and check out the full article. But let's just pause there for today, okay? Because we've gone through a lot, talking about the resistance, talking about the biological you versus the modern you, and just laying the groundwork to understand who are we fighting in this battle. And the truth is, it's you. And because you're going to be stuck with you for the entirety of your life, you need to figure out how you are going to interact with this other you on a daily basis so that you can start making progress towards your best self. So tune in tomorrow. We're going to start diving into the 6-step framework, or the 6-part framework for developing unbreakable discipline. I hope this brought you a little bit of value. If it did, share it with somebody that you think might get a little bit of value out of it as well. And I'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Until then, stay hyper-focused, my friend.